4 a.m. Zulu, deep in the freezing void off the coast of East Greenland. The temperature is 20 degrees below zero, cold enough to snap steel like a dry twig. But right now, the only thing snapping is the spine of the Admiral Grigorovich. Just moments ago, this stealth frigate was the half-billion-dollar bully of the Northern Sea Route, a floating fortress sent to flex its muscles at NATO just days before the Winter Olympics. Now, it is a 300-foot torch illuminating the Arctic night, venting superheated plasma from a magazine detonation that just registered on seismographs in Iceland. If you think this was the work of a U.S. Virginia-class submarine or a barrage of Harpoon missiles, you are dead wrong. And if you think a $500 million warship is safe from a weapon that costs less than a used Toyota Camry, then you need to wake up. Stay focused, because the physics of destruction you are about to witness didn't just sink a ship. It sank an entire naval doctrine. The Russians brought a knife to a gunfight, but Ukraine brought a calculator, and the math is brutal. To truly appreciate the humiliation we are about to witness, you first have to respect the monster that was stalking these waters just 5 minutes ago. The Admiral Grigorovich is not merely a frigate, it is a 4,000-ton declaration of war, a stealth predator designed to make NATO admirals lose sleep. Sitting on the bow is the crown jewel of Russian paranoia, the Pantsir M system. This isn't your grandfather's anti-air gun. It is a fully automated robot capable of tracking 4 targets simultaneously and engaging them with a mix of hypersonic missiles and 30mm rounds. Flanking the superstructure are the AK-630 rotary cannons, 6-barreled meat grinders that can spit out 5,000 rounds a minute, creating a literal wall of lead that supposedly nothing can penetrate. On paper, this ship is a Death Star, an impregnable fortress protected by layers of overlapping kill zones. The Russian crew, warm in their cabins, believes they are untouchable, safe behind classified composite armor and the best electronic warfare suite Moscow can buy. But stay with me, because they built a fortress to stop missiles, but they forgot to look down. Let's talk numbers, because war is ultimately a business, and business is about to be booming for the scrapyards. The Admiral Grigorovich carries a price tag that would make a Wall Street hedge fund manager blush. $500 million. That is $500 million of Russian taxpayer money floating on the water, equivalent to the annual budget of a mid-sized city, all wrapped up in radar-absorbent paint. But the hull is just the wrapper. The candy inside is even more expensive. Buried deep within the vertical launch cells are 8-caliber cruise missiles, each valued at $6.5 million. That is another $50 million in high-explosive assets sitting there waiting to be fired. When you add the $15 million Pantsir system and the millions in fuel, this isn't just a ship, it is a floating bank vault. Most people see power, but the financially savvy viewers among you see a massive liability. The Russian commander is sitting on a powder keg made of gold bars, convinced his investment is too big to fail. But here is the financial twist. Moscow missed. In the Arctic, inflation hits differently. While the Russian captain is admiring his reflection in the bridge window, 10 miles away, a rusted hatch on a nondescript civilian container ship slides open. This is the modern Trojan horse, and what comes out isn't an army, but a swarm of mosquitoes. The first asset to hit the freezing water is Magura V5 Unit 1. But this isn't the assassin, it is the town drunk. The Ukrainian engineers have stripped out the warhead and replaced it with Lüneburg lenses, simple metal geometric shapes designed to reflect radar waves like a disco ball. On the Grigorovich's scope, this 20-foot plastic boat suddenly lights up with the radar cross-section of a destroyer. It is screaming, "I am here, come and get me!" But wait, because the deception gets deeper. From the deck of the Magura, a hatch pops open, releasing a swarm of 6 Arctic Wasp drones. These aren't military-grade predators. They are glorified toys you could buy on Amazon, modified with cardboard frames and heating packs to mimic the thermal signature of a missile exhaust. Stay focused, because this is where the genius of asymmetric warfare shines. The Ukrainians aren't trying to hide. They are trying to be seen. The TB2 Bayraktar, orbiting silently at 25,000 feet above the cloud layer, acts as a Wi-Fi router in the sky, relaying control signals down to the swarm. The drones begin to fly in a chaotic, non-linear pattern that no standard military doctrine accounts for. They bob and weave, changing altitude randomly, mimicking the terminal maneuvers of incoming anti-ship missiles, but at a fraction of the speed. To the billion-dollar brain of the Pantsir M fire control computer, this doesn't make sense. The radar sees multiple large threats approaching from the port side. The thermal cameras pick up heat signatures consistent with jet engines. The algorithms, programmed to fight NATO jets and supersonic missiles, start to overheat. The computer is trying to predict the trajectory of a piece of cardboard flapping in the wind, and it is failing. If you were the commander of this battery, watching your screen fill with red warning triangles, what would your next move be? Do you trust your eyes peering into the black fog, or do you trust the machine that costs more than your entire hometown? The Ukrainians are counting on the fact that fear makes men stupid, and technology makes them lazy. They have created a phantom fleet out of plastic and radio waves, effectively hacking the enemy's situational awareness without firing a single shot. The trap is set, not with gunpowder, but with information overload. Inside the Combat Information Center, the Russian captain looks at the chaotic radar returns and makes a decision based on ego, not logic. Instead of confirming the targets visually, he panics. He authorizes the launch of a Kh-35 Uran. Watch closely, because you are seeing a $2 million missile designed to sink destroyers ignite its booster to chase a plastic boat that costs less than the captain's dacha. The missile screams off the rail, illuminating the ice floes, and seconds later, boom! The decoy Magura vaporizes in a spectacular but ultimately useless fireball. On the deck, the sailors manning the AK-632 are having the time of their lives. The rotary cannons spin up, sounding like a giant canvas ripping apart as they spew thousands of rounds into the air, shredding the slow-moving cardboard Arctic wasps. The sky lights up with tracers. To the untrained eye, it looks like a victory. The crew is cheering, high-fiving, and according to intercepted comms, someone is already cracking open a bottle of victory vodka. They think they have just repelled a major NATO-level swarm attack. They are patting each other on the back, completely oblivious to the fact that they have just expended nearly $3 million in ordnance to destroy some hobby-grade electronics and a boat filled with nothing but sea air. But here is the lethal error that comes with arrogance. The noise of the AK-632 is deafening. The smoke from the missile launch hangs heavy in the freezing air, creating a blind spot. The radar operators are relaxed, leaning back in their chairs, thinking the board is clear. They believe the battle is over. They believe the ocean is empty. But those who understand the art of the ambush know that the loud noise was just the dinner bell. While the Russians are busy celebrating their victory over a pile of scrap metal, the real predator has been running silent, running deep, and it is now inside their minimum engagement zone. The smoke from the AK-632 hangs over the water, masking the horizon in a toxic gray haze. The Russian crew is experiencing the physiological crash that follows an adrenaline dump. Their senses are dulled, their guard is completely down. But 500 yards off the stern, in the acoustic shadow of the frigate's own wake, the black water begins to churn. Enter Magura V5 Unit 2, the Widowmaker. Unlike the noisy decoy that just vaporized, this unit is painted in radar-absorbent matte black, sitting so low it is invisible amongst the ice. But the Ukrainians don't just ram it in blindly. From the deck of the drone boat, a small object launches into the air, trailing a thin, shimmering strand of fiber optic cable. Stay focused, because this copper wire is why the Russian electronic warfare suite is about to become useless. The ship is blasting out jamming signals strong enough to fry a microwave, but the fiber optic drone is hardwired. It is immune to jamming. It is unstoppable. Through the crystal clear feed, the operator steers the drone right past the sleeping Pantsir radar, aiming for the rudder mechanism. Whack! The explosion wedges the rudder hard to port. The 4,000-ton giant groans, locking itself into a predictable death spiral. The ice fortress is paralyzed. With the target immobilized, the Magura V5 engine roars. The 300 horsepower jet drive kicks in, propelling 660 pounds of RDX explosive forward at 45 miles per hour. On the bridge, the captain hears the engine whine. He spins around and sees the white wake tearing towards his ship like a torpedo. He screams for the gunners to traverse, but the AK-632 are facing forward. The turret motors whine, trying to spin 180 degrees, but physics is a cruel mistress. The traverse speed is too slow. Time to impact, 8 seconds. The Russian sailors on the fantail rush to the railing with AK-74 rifles, firing desperately into the water. It's a scene of utter desperation. Bullets sparking off the composite hull, trying to stop a guided missile boat. Time to impact, 3 seconds. The drone doesn't weave, it locks onto the heat signature of the engine room. The operator in Kiev pushes the throttle to max. Impact. Don't blink, or you will miss the moment hydrodynamics turns a warship into a submarine. When 660 pounds of RDX detonates against a steel hull underwater, physics takes the wheel. Air is compressible. Water is not. This means the explosion cannot expand outward into the ocean as easily as it can expand inward into the ship. The water acts as a solid anvil, focusing 90% of the blast energy directly into the hull plating. In a millisecond, the steel isn't just breached, it is sheared off like wet paper, sending a supersonic shockwave of overpressure tearing through the lower decks. But here is the catch that turns a bad night into a catastrophe. The drone struck the engine room, but the shockwave travels through the bulkheads and ruptures the fuel lines, creating an aerosolized mist of diesel. Then, the heat arrives. Stay with me, because the thermal truth is about to get very loud. The shockwave reaches the forward magazine where the Caliber cruise missiles are stored. These missiles are packed with solid rocket fuel and high explosives. When the fire reaches them, it doesn't just burn, it cooks off. This is known as a sympathetic detonation. Suddenly, the Admiral Grigorovich isn't being attacked from the outside. It is exploding from the inside. The internal pressure spikes to levels that the structural spine of the ship, the keel, was never designed to handle. A 300-foot pillar of fire, a mix of burning diesel and missile propellant, erupts through the deck, turning the freezing Arctic night into high noon. The heat is so intense it melts the aluminum superstructure, dripping molten metal into the sea. The physics are absolute. With the keel broken and the hull wide open, the ship loses its longitudinal strength. The bow and stern rise up as the center collapses, creating a fatal V-shape. The pumps are useless. The damage control parties are gone. It took Russia 10 years and $500 million to build this pride of the fleet. It takes the Arctic Ocean exactly 8 minutes to swallow it whole. As the final antenna disappears beneath the black water, the only thing left is a patch of boiling oil and the silence of total defeat. The fire is out, but the burn in Moscow is just starting. Let's perform the autopsy, not on the bodies, but on the bank account. This is where the true humiliation lies. On the debit side, Russia just wrote off a $500 million Stealth Frigate. Add in $50 million of cooked-off Caliber missiles and the $15 million Pantsir system. That is over $500 million evaporated in 8 minutes. The Kremlin just bought the world's most expensive artificial reef. On the credit side, what did Ukraine spend to achieve this checkmate? 2 Magura V5s at $100,000 each. A handful of disposable hobby drones made of cardboard, maybe $10,000 total. A rented shipping container and Starlink. The grand total is under $250,000. Do the math, that is a leverage ratio of 2,000 to 1. Wall Street would kill for those returns. Ukraine didn't just sink a ship, they proved the era of the giant surface combatant is dead. We are watching the extinction of the dinosaur in 4K. Russia built a Death Star, convinced armor meant safety. But they forgot the golden rule. Being big just means you are a bigger target. If a billion-dollar warship cannot see a plastic boat in the fog until it rips a hole in the hull, then that technology is just scrap metal. Zelensky was right. There are no safe harbors. The message to Moscow is simple. You can build floating palaces, but we will turn them into submarines for the price of a studio apartment. So, here is the question for the tactical experts watching. If you were a NATO commander, how would you police an ocean where every civilian container ship could be a drone carrier in disguise? Would you search every vessel? Leave your battle plan in the comments below. And if you enjoyed watching the underdog win with math, smash that like button.